Today we're going to talk about Mini Coopers and the future of automobiles. Let's get started. This is a 2007 Mini Cooper S. This is also kind of a transition year. You could have supercharged or turbocharged, and the proof of that is when you go to order parts for this vehicle, it clearly asks you, is this one supercharged or is it turbocharged? And you can tell by the VIN number, a few other different things. This one happens to be turbocharged. These things are very cute. I really like these cars. Underneath, though, they are a BMW. I've gotten several questions from people like, hey, is that a good car? Is it reliable? They're not horrible, but they're not great either. Like I said, underneath it's a BMW. When these things get some miles on them, just like any Mercedes or BMW or Jaguar, things are going to need a lot more maintenance than a Toyota or something like that. And when they do break, it's going to be triple what you think it's going to be to fix it. This one's in here for, it had quite a list of complaints, but we were only able to fix 3 items. The customer gave the okay on those 3 items. But as we're working on this vehicle, I'm seeing things that are really strange, materials that are being used, and it kind of got me thinking that I've seen this on all kinds of cars, 2018, 19, 20, those newer cars that are out now, how they're so expensive, but yet the companies have dropped the cost to make the car. It seems kind of weird. It's like the cost to make the car has gone way down, but yet you've doubled the price. So that means the profit is even greater. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird direction that they're going. Let's go ahead and take a look around this vehicle. We'll talk about that stuff here towards the end of the video. Here is the cute front of this Mini Cooper. It has a cuteness like a VW Beetle or something like that, but it's a lot more sportier and a lot more stylish than a Beetle. It's not just bubbly and cute. But this one's in pretty good shape as we go over to the edge or the sides of the car. Obviously we have the front suspension apart, so we could do the axle seals. You can see it says S by the turn signal on the side there. One thing that's really good is you can see it has above the wheels, there's some plastic cladding, and that's to help with corrosion. Just like with our pickup trucks from the 70s, 80s, and even today, they rust really bad in that area, and that probably helps quell some of that. Here in the back it has the twin exhaust tips in the center, which looks kind of cool. The styling is really nice on this vehicle, and the condition is really nice as well. Looks like it's got some fairly new tires. One thing I've always thought about Mini Coopers and also smart cars is if you rear end one of these cars, the entire rear end is going to be destroyed. All of it, because it's like literally right there. Anyways, let's go ahead and hop under the hood. Here we have the 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. You can see the turbo is literally right there. If it were to fail, it wouldn't be too bad to get to it. It's not hidden behind by the firewall or anything. These engines are pretty decent. They're not really known for high failure rates or anything, but everything external likes to leak. Coolant leaks, oil leaks, valve cover gasket leaks, coolant temperature sensor failures, wiring failures, all kinds of things like that. They're not robust in those areas. But the engines really aren't that bad. Very fun to drive, actually. As you can see, we have one more coil to install. We were waiting on a spark plug to show up at the end of the day Friday. It did not show up yet, so we're just waiting for that. We can put that on and that part is done. Other than the spark plugs, there really wasn't much we're doing up top on this engine, so let's go ahead and hop into the interior and let Mrs. Wizard give you guys a quick little tour.
There it is, ladies and gents, 85,008 miles, so it's got a fair amount of miles on here. And we look at the gauge cluster, one single, there's not a lot going on there because that's just our tach. Let's slide over to the center section and whoa, let's back up a little bit. And there is our gargantuan speedometer. No chance of missing how fast you're going, except you have to look to the right to see how fast you are. Has the infotainment line there for our radio setup as well. It does have nice turnstile vents, which are super fabulous and handy, and does have a nice little push button start also. Let's go up to that dash, which is shockingly large. For such a small car, it goes quite out there. It goes nicely to the point. And there's no, other than a little dust, there's no cracks, crevices, nothing else. As we scroll down, you'll see, well, a lot of times we'll see faux wood, we'll see real wood, we'll see some fiber. We have some lovely stylized plastic covering. Well, it's interesting. It gives a nice little pattern to it. It's not what we normally see in many other cars. Below that gargantuan speedometer, you can see we do have the HVAC system, and we do have some fun little knobs here with a nice little protector on them. I'm not sure if they were worried about them breaking off or not, but they are kind of nice to separate each function. As we move down, you also see we have a very simple gear selector, have our ever so handy ice brush and scraper because it's Kansas and you never know, today's 60, tomorrow's -20. So they're at least prepared. It is a very, very short distance between the driver's seat and the passenger. This is a very, very narrow palm's width, little armrest between, and we get to the passenger seat. Cloth all the way around, but it's actually fairly comfortable, a little bit of bolster on the side. Now we have a fun design on this door. It has a nice kind of a almost perfect oval with more of that fun design that we saw on the front. We have a couple of nice round speakers in the door to keep that circle theme going on. Round door pull as well with our round vents also. So a lot of circular curvilinear design going on in this space. As we move to the back seat, it is very, very narrow. It is a 2-seat back seat. There's no sitting on the hump, so there's no fighting over who gets in the middle spot. That fun pattern design we see repeated on the fabric as we've seen on the plastic trim in the front as well. Not a lot of space back here if I can manage. It is pretty tight, so obviously we'd have to move seats forward if you had someone tall sitting back here. One source of contention would be if you have children is they only give you one cup holder for the back seat. Sounds like World War III could start if you have children sitting in the back seat. But in the back seat, while they're fighting over that cup holder, they do get their own sunroof with the sunshade. And there's not much headliner because there's a little bit of headliner that's actually dividing up into the front seat. So other than that, and there's a little bit of section up here, not much headliner to be drooping, sagging, or getting smudged. As we get to our steering wheel, I'm confused. Is this PlayStation or is it Mini? PlayStation or Mini? These buttons look an awful lot like PlayStation controls. I wonder where they sourced them. But otherwise, it's got the lovely Mini Cooper symbol in the center, and again, simple controls to keep our focus hopefully more on the road in front of us and not having to constantly be like looking over at that really big speedometer over there. Otherwise, enough of this interior talk. Let's get this up in the air.
Here we can see through this little grate here, we can see a cooler and also a condenser. Everything looks to be in good shape. Nothing's wet, leaking, or anything like that. Come down to here. You can see a lot of our BMW plasticky stuff. They love to put all these plastic pieces everywhere. There's our fan, everything's in good shape. There's our transmission pan, our engine oil pan. Everything's looking pretty good there. Obviously we're not going to check the wheels or the brakes because they're currently apart. Right in here you can see this axle seal. We've got the axle actually pulled out. Danielson has been working on this. He's got it cleaned up and everything, but it will, as you can see, it's starting to already leak. It's getting wet there. It'll just kind of leak and dribble all down this transmission here and make a mess. Same thing on the other side. You really can't see it very well from here, but it's the same seal, but it's on the other side up in here. So we got all that apart. Another piece of the exhaust system. Everything looks good there. Not very many steps back, and we're at the back, Mrs. Wizard.
It's a tiny little car.
Here's our rear suspension. Our shock is nice and dry. Brakes are good. Nothing loose there. There's our twin tip exhaust out the back. Shock is dry there. Brakes are good. Nothing loose there. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the ground. There wasn't a whole lot we were doing underneath anyways. As you can see, it's a small car. There's not a whole lot going on under here. So let's get it on the ground. I forgot one thing before we put this on the ground. wanted to show you guys how the water pump is actually ran off this vehicle. It doesn't use a belt. It kind of does. It uses the back side of the belt, but it's really odd. Let's take a look. So you can see the AC compressor and everything has a belt. But you can see on the back side of the belt there's a little wheel touching, and that wheel touches up here another wheel, which is the water pump. That silver colored pulley right here is the actual water pump. The only thing between the water pump and the main pulley is this other wheel. They use friction. It just touches. There's not really anything inherently wrong with that. It's just really strange. If you were to take this to your average mom and pop mechanic shop, they would probably look at that and say, no thanks. I don't even know what's going on there. So really have to take these to somebody who knows Mini Coopers. We've worked on tons of these cars. We really kind of enjoy working on them. So let's go ahead and get this thing on the ground. When we got the water pump off, Danielson handed it to me, and it just kind of got me thinking about the way things are going with cars. They're just cheapening up more and more every year. Take a look at this water pump, guys. It used to be a big deal how cheap it is that they used a plastic impeller, which you can see here. It's little just plastic. I could snap it and break it if I want to. Just like that. Cheap, chintzy plastic, but now they've taken it a step further. The entire body is plastic. That is not metal, guys. What's next? They're going to make plastic flanges, plastic shafts. This is really, really cheap. A thought could be made, oh, that's great. They're all plastic, so when they fail, I'll use a 3D printer and just make them out of plastic and make new ones. But I don't have the specifications and the engineering drawings for these. Maybe they could be downloaded or something somewhere. I don't know, but this has to be pretty precise and it has to be done right. Secondly, I really don't want to provide a 1 or 2 or a 5-year warranty on a plastic piece that I made on a 3D printer. I don't think it'll even last as long as the original factory parts. So I don't think that's going to be a viable option. This one failed because it is plastic. The mating surface here kind of just gets warped, and then the seal, even though the seal is still good, the surface was irregular and it started leaking. There's not much you can do with it. The whole thing is warped. They actually sell metal upgrades, which is what it has on there now. It's a metal water pump. It's really sad that the aftermarket is having to take up the slack where the manufacturers have cheapened out so much that there's actually a market in the aftermarket for making metal parts to put it back the way it should have been in the first place. So it's really kind of sad, guys. Let me get this table out of the way and we'll talk a little bit more about it. So it's easy to say, oh, it's a Mini Cooper. It's expected. They're made cheaply. They're not very good quality. Of course they're plastic. But that's wrong. What we just saw on that water pump and how cheaply made that was is happening on Honda, Toyota, Ford, Chevrolet, Buick, Hyundai, on all the brands. All of them. Plastic oil pans, plastic intakes, plastic thermostat necks, plastic pulleys. There's tons and tons of stuff that really should be metal, but they're plastic. And the proof that they should be metal is the fact that there's a very strong aftermarket of upgraded metal parts. We really shouldn't have to be even buying upgraded metal parts. They should have been there in the first place. So you could say, well, they're making them cheaper so they can keep the manufacturing costs down and they're able to make the prices more affordable for people. But have you seen in the market lately, are cars getting more affordable? They're not. They're skyrocketing. Me and Crazy D were looking at Facebook Marketplace here this last week. Anything that's 2018 and newer, 2019, 2021, especially as you get newer, everything's 30 and 40 grand and up. There is no car you can buy that's a 2020 that's really under 30 grand. And trucks are 50 to 100 now, even when they're 5 and 10 years old. Video Bob actually just purchased a truck. He searched for a long time because he's from Texas and he's all into trucks. A lot of people in Texas like trucks. And he just couldn't wrap his head around. He's like, I can't believe I'm spending $55,000 on a 10-year-old truck. I don't know, guys. I don't know where the automotive world is going. It's really, really kind of scary. So I definitely thought about that when I saw the plastic water pump. I said, this is definitely the way they're going now. A water pump should last over 100,000 miles, maybe even 150. There's a lot of vehicles with 150,000 miles on them that still have their original water pumps. When they're making it out of plastic, I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll get the water pump situation solved. We'll get these seals replaced, spark plugs. There were several other issues, but the customer is saying that that's within their realm of affordability right now just to do the 3 items. So we'll take care of those, and we'll put this little Mini Cooper back out on the road again. But definitely wanted to share a video with you guys that as I'm running a shop, I'm seeing these things. It's actually kind of scary. It's like, what is happening to cars today? It's really kind of crazy. So if you're curious what kind of tools that Danielson used or that we used here in the shop to work on any of these cars, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's many more cool videos to come and more Citroen videos. Thanks for watching.